An unimaginable loss.
He was the life of the party.
A Colorado teen dies after overdosing on fentanyl.
I'm gonna miss everything about him.
Tonight, his loved ones are breaking their silence to number 7, what they believe caused him to take the pill that ended his life.
Rent on the rise.
It feels like you're taking one step forward and 2 steps back.
Tenants paying big bucks for housing.
I was feeling like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay this?
Tonight, we're taking a closer look at the conditions causing rent to rise.
Landeskog, empty net,
Oh yeah, first tonight, Avs fans breathing a big sigh of relief as the Western Conference Finals get off to a thrilling start. You know, for the second time in less than a week, the Avs watched a comfortable lead kind of wilt away.
But unlike last week, this time the Avs held on, barely. Sports director Lionel Bienvenu leads off our team coverage tonight.
And Lionel, this series is shaping up to be a wild one.
If game 1 is any indication, guys, it was like a shootout in the wild, wild west. The Avs and the Oilers, star power all over the ice, the 2 highest scoring teams in the playoffs, and it was a blur of pucks into the net. It's like watching a tennis match. It would take me 10 minutes to show you all the goals, so we'll just show you the Avalanche goals. Ball Arena was rocking. Look at this scene. That was the place to be tonight. It was 1-1 in the first period when Devon Toews made a beautiful pass up to Nate McKinnon, and you do not stop this Mack truck. Just forget about it. Forget about it. He tapped it in between the legs of Mike Smith. Avs up 2-1. Oilers scored again with 22 seconds left in the first. Then the Avs got it right back. Less than 10 seconds later, Cale Makar. It was 3-2 after 1. Couldn't keep up with this. They just kept coming. Second period, Nate D'Amico and Rantanen gets one. The Avs were up 5-3, and Oilers goalie Mike Smith was done, but so was Darcy Kemper. Avs goalie left with an upper body injury. It was so crazy. Toews to Makar again, the shot off JT Compher here. This is his second goal of the game. It was 6-3, then 7-3, then 7-6, and finally, after an empty netter by Gabe Landeskog, 8-6 Avs, the final. Thank you. 14 goals in game 1. My gosh, this is going to be a wild series. So let's go live to Ball Arena with Denver 7 sports anchor Nick Rothschild. Nick, enough action to pack 4 games in this series, but the bottom line is Avs got the win.
Yeah, honestly, Lionel, too much action. Okay, I was doubled over a trash can by the end of that game, almost puking my guts out because I couldn't handle the stress of this. I don't know how the players handled it, but they did. They pull out the win and they score 8 goals. That ties the most in Colorado history in a single postseason game. So what's not to like? Well, a lot, because the post-game press conferences felt more like a loss than a win. Take a listen.
We need 4. We got 1. A lot of work to do. You know, I think, like Comp said, we would prefer to not have an 8-6 game. You know, we're up 7-3. We got to, find a way just to get the momentum back a little bit as they push. But that's playoff hockey. There's so many momentum swings.
We're getting scoring chances, capitalizing, and then obviously they're doing the same. And a couple unfortunate bounces on our end from a couple block shots. But at the end of the day, those aren't like playoff games. I feel like we got to be tighter as a group, and we know that. And so focus moves to game 2.
Yeah, surly Nate McKinnon was back in the post-game press conference. At one point, Jared Bednar says that kind of defense is just simply not good enough against the Edmonton Oilers. Well, it was good enough tonight, Jared. You won game 1. At least you can take solace in that. You can also take solace in the fact that you learned from that game 5 against the Blues where you let the lead completely slip away. Tonight you win. You have a lot to work on, Lionel, but hey, you're up 1-0 in the series.
Yeah, we'll hear from Coach Bednar coming up a little bit later in sports. So the Avs protect home ice in game 1. Goalie questions will linger into game 2. No update on the injury to Kemper. So Thursday night, Ball Arena, here we come. More later in sports, Ann.
Looking forward to it. Thank you. And Avs fans relieved tonight to see their team get the win and take the lead. One fan we talked to after the game says he is confident the Avs will win this series.
They try to make it a game, but I think Avalanche is going to kill it. And this is game 1. This is game 1.
Yeah. What do you think the end result's going to be?
Avalanche playing in Tampa. See you guys there.
I Appreciate the confidence, but I'm still sweating. Talking weather now, Avs fans had to break out the umbrellas as they left the arena tonight.
Yeah, let's bring in Chief Meteorologist Mike Nelson tracking this rain for us, Mike.
It is a soggy night and a chilly night. This is the view up in Boulder on the Pearl Street Mall. Check out the current temperatures. 45 Denver, Fort Collins, 47 degrees in Greeley, 35 in Leadville. Nice rain across the plains and higher elevations. Winter weather advisory in effect tonight for elevations above 8,000 feet, and some areas may pick up a good 6 inches of wet, slushy snow. Some of that will even come down into the far western suburbs. It has been a good soaker on the plains and will continue to be overnight tonight. So the good soaking rain, the snow in the mountains, the wet weather ends tomorrow with a big warm up toward the end of the week. I'll have all of it for you coming up in a few minutes in the 7-day planner.
Sounds good, thanks. From gas to food, Coloradans are paying more for what seems like pretty much everything these days.
And rent is no exception. Some renters say they're seeing their rent go up as much as 30%.
Denver 7's Rob Harris talked to a woman in Arvada who is leaving her apartment because she says she just can't afford it anymore.
I think for us, it's just really important to have enough space for 2 people.
Sarah Gardenier has lived in Denver for 5 years, and she's moved into a new apartment every year so far.
Moving every single year is just very, very stressful.
She'd hoped this year would be different, and that she, her partner, and their 2 dogs could stay put in the apartment that's become home.
It's a really easy commute. We're also right off of a bike path, so it's really easy to walk our dogs there.
Gardenier's no stranger to the skyrocketing home prices in Denver, so when it came time to renew her lease, she was bracing for an increase.
I was originally told it was going to be going up by 12 to 15%. Much to our surprise, we found out that our rent was going up about $500 a month, or 30% more than what we're paying now. I was feeling like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay this? When I asked if there was any negotiating ability to lower the increase, I was told no, which was even more frustrating, and I felt very helpless.
Gardenier's experience is not an outlier. It is part of the trend in the Denver metro. A report from University of Denver's Daniels College of Business found that average rents are up $222 over the past year, a 13% increase. That is well above increases in wages and even the record inflation we've seen with other costs.
It feels like you're taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back. It just constantly feels like I'm being pushed down and can't really get ahead to make a life for myself.
Even with the higher rent prices, landlords aren't having any trouble finding renters willing to pay. The same research from DU found that only 4% of Denver's apartment units were empty, and that the metro is adding units at a much slower rate than demand. Gardenier has found a new home to rent that's within her budget, but it wasn't easy.
I didn't sleep for a week. So I was like up on apps, I was up on Craigslist messaging people pretty much nonstop. What I sort of worry about is for individuals in this complex who may be older or retired or don't have as high of an income, who may not be able to handle these rent increases.
These skyrocketing rent prices are expected to keep climbing even higher. With home prices and mortgage rates going up as well, the chance to buy a home is even more out of reach for some renters. Tom?
No relief in sight. Thank you, Rob. And with Americans paying more across the board, President Biden met with the chair of the Federal Reserve to discuss rising inflation. And one thing the president is making very clear, he will not dictate what the Fed does.
I'm not going to interfere with their critically important work. The Fed has 2 responsibilities. 1, full employment. 2, stable prices.
Inflation in April grew to a whopping 8.3%. That's nearly a 40-year high.
Tense hours in Lakeside today as police search for an escapee who stabbed a correctional officer. Authorities say 17-year-old Juan Osegueda, an inmate at Platte Valley Youth Services in Greeley, was having a dental procedure done inside Primary Dental when he stabbed the officer with a knife. A surveillance image captured Osegueda appearing to lunge at the officer with the knife raised in his hand. And after the officer was stabbed, the teen ran from the building with shackles still on his feet. Well, police set up a perimeter for several hours as they searched for the teen. And the search eventually ended near 43rd and Eaton with the teen in handcuffs, thanks to one officer's intuition.
He had a good hunch that the suspect didn't make it past 43rd Street. And he told me, he said, "Chief, I think he's in the alley here." And I said, "We'll just wait until the dog gets down there." And, you know, they had grid searches to do. And once the dog got there, he was right on the money on that.
State officials say the officer who was stabbed is out of the hospital. Osegueda is expected to face new charges.
Tonight, city leaders in Louisville have approved a proclamation declaring Friday as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in that city.
And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 3rd to help raise awareness about gun violence. And whereas by wearing orange on June 3rd through the 5th, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives and lost human potential of Americans stolen by gun violence.
And that proclamation comes 1 week to the day that 19 students and 2 teachers were gunned down inside Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. That tragedy has reignited calls for new laws to increase gun safety and prevent mass shootings. A bipartisan group of lawmakers is now working on a 10-day deadline to find a compromise. On the table are several proposals to restrict access to guns, including expanding background checks, red flag warnings, which would prevent someone from getting a gun if they have a history of concerning behavior, and funding for mental health resources. Meanwhile, President Biden is promising to meet with Congress to discuss gun reform. During a press conference today, a White House spokesperson said the president would support a ban on assault-style weapons like the ones used in Texas.
And the first of the 21 victims killed in Uvalde now being laid to rest. 2 funerals today, 2 more tomorrow in a Texas town that is hurting. Mourners gathered in a church this afternoon to honor 10-year-old Amory Jo Garza, who loved art. And again this evening to celebrate the life of 10-year-old Maite Rodriguez, who wanted to be a marine biologist. Since that shooting 1 week ago, investigators have struggled to pinpoint a timeline of events and how police responded. Investigators have determined a teacher did not leave a door propped open. That door was closed but did not lock. Now, encouraging news for Colorado families struggling to find baby formula. The state health department says over the weekend, hospitals began receiving shipments of formula. This news coming as the state launches a new website to help families through the ongoing shortage. Families can use the site for up-to-date information on where they can get help. And you can find a link to the new website right now over at thedenverchannel.com.
The fentanyl crisis striking Colorado families.
From the day that we found out, it just felt like we all were in a bad dream.
A teenager loses his life after taking a pill laced with a deadly substance.
I would honestly just want to tell him I love him.
Up next, his family speaks with Denver 7.
And a close call on a Colorado reservoir.